Katie lay on her bed reading. It was the one fun thing she had in her life, to be alone and read to herself. Even though she had read every word of all 117 books in the house over and over in the last 2 years, that was all there was. Katie was tired of the books she had from when she was 9. She was ready for something more interesting. But you couldn't just go out to the library and get more like you could in the days before the virus came.
Katie, her mom called up the stairs. Could you please take Milo out? Said Katie, playing for a little time and not quite wanting to put her book down just yet. Katie, now, before it rains, please. All right, Mom, I heard you the first time.
Milo was their dog. He was only little, which was lucky, because it got hard to find much food for him these days. He had to be walked every day, or he got anxious and started chewing everything. Every day, even Christmas Eve, like today. Not that that day mattered anymore.
Katie climbed down the ladder from her bedroom to the family room below. There was Milo sniffing around near the door, being bothered by little Molly, who kept pulling on Milo's collar. 2-year-old Molly was always wanting Milo to play with her. She was only a baby when everything in the world had changed. She had never met any person except for her own family. But she didn't know any different, so she just carried on being a toddler and roping the dog into playing jump and chase and pretend biting. Molly and Milo both liked to chew on the same toys, which was so disgusting. It was really too bad there would be no Christmas again this year. She would have loved to choose new toys for both of them.
Katie could see it was getting ready to rain outside, even though not much light could get into the house. She picked up her mask and fetched her coat and Milo's harness down from the pegs by the door. Don't forget to pick up any wood you see, Katie, said Mom from the kitchen table. I know, replied Katie in a tired sort of way. She totally knew to do that. She kind of didn't mean to, but she gave a little cross sigh. Sighing was something you got good at by the time you were 11 years old. Bye, Mom, she said, pulling the door inward to get it open.
The doorway was blocked most of the way by vines. She took out her pocket knife and sliced through the thickest stems. They cut away easily, and she was able to push most of the rest of the blockage out of the way until she and the dog could get through.
She pulled the door shut behind them. In the overcast daylight, the yard looked more gray than green, covered as it was with a mess of thick vines. Every brick surface, all of the wood, every tree and plant was draped with fast-growing, soft, gray-green ropes, matted and choked on the ground or hanging like a curtain from the remaining trees. They crawled up the walls and clawed at the gutters. Only on the side of the house that looked toward the sea were there any breaks in that sickly green shroud. Katie shook the dusty vine seed out of her mask's filter and slipped it on over her head.
Last year, the family had laid down plastic sheeting on the path. The vines could not hold on to plastic and just heaped up at the sides like mounds of dirty snow. Katie kicked at them as she and Milo walked past. The path was made safe with plastic for the first part of their journey, and Milo eagerly pulled Katie forward there. He loved to get out. Katie did too, really. It was nice to breathe open air and feel the wind, and soon they would get down to the sea.
The last few feet of path had gotten overgrown since yesterday, but easily cut back. Then, with a final push, they were down to the beach. Katie let Milo off his leash to run around. He knew to stay on the sand where there were no vines, but he wasn't so sensible about going into the sea itself. Every day he would eagerly rush up to try and chase a wave, and every day he would be all surprised to get a splash of cold, salty water in the face.
Katie wandered along the beach, keeping in sight of Milo. It was okay to take her mask off here, by the sea in the brackish breeze. Every so often, she spotted a downed branch or dry bush along the edge of the beach, or a clump of dry seaweed. She picked them up, pulled them out, or cut them down, slowly making a scrappy bundle to carry on her back. Milo was not helping with this chore. He just wanted to tug on the other end of whatever she picked up. "You're such a dog," said Katie, not very crossly.
After a half hour, Katie had gathered a good-sized load to take home, and Milo was beginning to tire out. The two friends turned for home and began to trudge up the slope away from the beach. Soon the sound of the sea was gone, and the heaps and walls of vines to either side seemed more depressing than ever. Katie kept her head down and watched over Milo's progress. Sometimes he would get his leash into a bit of a tangle and get himself stuck.
Then on the darkest part of the walk home, something unexpected happened. Katie was bending down to pat tired old Milo when her eye caught sight of something very unusual. In the gloom beyond the vines, something pink. In this world, everything was usually always dark green or sickly gray from the vines, but somewhere something else must be growing. Something with bright colors the vines could never produce. Katie made a small gap in the wall of plant matter down low on her left side. For some reason, they seemed to come away easily here, and she was quickly able to push through into a sort of clear area.
Here she could see the vines were so thin on the ground that light could get through, and on the far side of the clearing, a little pink flower had lifted its tiny head to the sun. It might not look as colorful as the flowers Katie remembered from years ago, but a flower it was, and as pink as anyone could hope for. Katie was seized with the urge to pick it and bring it back for Mom. She would love it! But wait, I don't want to take it from the earth. It's better to leave it growing here, she thought, the first of its kind to make a comeback. But we totally all have to come out together and see it tomorrow.
When the two got back home an hour later, the rain was beginning to come, and Katie was glad to be back inside. Jay opened the door for them. Katie said hi, but Jay just kind of let them in without saying much. Jay was almost 16 and seemed to live in a different world from everyone else. Jay missed their friends. They had been so looking forward to starting high school in the fall before the miasma when the vines came. Then everything went wrong. Now Jay spent most of their time in their own room, writing and reading and writing, who knows what. They never showed their sisters or Mom.
Well done, Katie. What a great bundle of sticks you got. You look like old King Wenceslas gathering winter fuel, like in the old Christmas carol. No, Mom, it was King Wenceslas who saw someone else gathering winter fuel. said Jay grumpily. Don't you remember anything? Duh. I remember that, Carol, thought Katie. Cow, chimed in Molly. Cow. Well, you can forget about that, snapped Jay. There won't be any more Christmas, ever. And they stomped into their own room and pulled the door shut. Why is they so upset?
Mom explained that Jay had wanted to use the computer today, but Mom had said no. We need to save fuel so that we can do a Zoom call with Dad tomorrow. It takes a whole week to save that much fuel, so no computer for anyone today. That's what Katie's wood was for. Everything that would burn went into the generator to charge up batteries and run the house. There really wasn't much to spare after the cooking and hot water was done. Katie's stack of sticks would be a good contribution, though. Katie didn't feel much like talking about the flower anymore. She was afraid if said anything out loud it might turn out to have been a dream. But she resolved to go back again tomorrow and see if it was still there. Maybe Jay would come with her. She wouldn't say where they were going until they got there. Then if the flower was just a dream, it wouldn't matter.
That night, Katie climbed the ladder to her room as quietly as she could so as not to wake Molly. Katie was so not ready for sleep, but there were no charged batteries to spare to run her reading light. She lay in the dark and looked up at the tiny window in the roof of her upstairs room. It used to let in so much sunshine in the daytime and a superfield of stars at night. Now it is dull and dimmed with the dark green mass of the vines, and little light could get in. Katie squinted and squinted in the dark, trying to remember how things were in the before time. As her eyes got used to the pitch darkness, she thought she could see, just for a moment, a tiny twinkle. It must have been a single bright star peeping through a crack between vine trunks.
Then it was gone, and Katie was back with her thoughts. Lying in the dark, she could hear the timbers of the house creaking and settling, and sometimes an owl or the scuttle of a little creature across the roof. Now she heard a different sound. She could hear someone crying, or trying not to cry. She knew it right away was a big sibling. Jay would have never said it, but Jay was just as sad about Christmas as Mom and Katie. It seemed maybe worse for them not to be around people. Jay was choking back the tears, but some feelings were just too hard to keep in. An idea came to Katie. She began, quietly at first, under her breath, to sing in the dark. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen. The crying noises stopped. Katie stopped too for a moment, then she went on. As the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even, joined in another voice. It had to be Jay.
Katie sang on, but pretty soon she ran out of words and started over on the first verse again. Jay didn't know all the words either, and they were just humming along and doing low harmonies, except when it came to Gathering Winter Fuel. They both sang out loud. Katie giggled a bit after that and lay her head down to sleep, happier than before.
Next day it was cold and hard to get out of bed. Everyone tried to avoid mentioning it was Christmas and just did their normal chores without catching each other's eye. Except Molly, of course, who was her usual noisy self. So typical, babies never change. Oh, Molly, we do love you, but you're so loud sometimes. Katie smiled at your little sister, scooped her up, and gave her a big kiss. Even Mom was quieter than usual, but she also had kind of a secret smile too. Maybe, like Katie, she was looking forward to 4 o'clock tonight, when they could Zoom with Dad all the way in Canada. Jay, said Mom, can you go out with Katie for wood today? We need as much as we can get right now. So, okay, replied Jay. Okay, I'll go.
Katie couldn't believe her luck. Now Jay would be there, and maybe they would find the clearing and a little flower together. Also, Jay was much stronger and could lift more wood than Katie. Feeling excited, she grabbed her warm clothes, snapped on her mask, and harnessed the dog, double quick. Milo was a little surprised, but always up for walkies, anytime. Milo and Katie waited impatiently for Jay to get ready. Finally, off they went. Stupid vines, stupid vines, stupid vines, go away, 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 away. Katie sang to herself and swung a stick at the gray mess either side of the path as they walked. If only this stuff would burn, thought Katie. But just turn to dust if you dried it out, and if you didn't, it was all nasty black smoke and no heat in the generator.
Jay walked along a little behind, keeping their thoughts to themselves and not saying much. As Katie got further down the path, she began to get afraid she might not be able to find the clearing again, but there it was. She was surprised to see the tunnel she had made was still mostly open. How come the vines hadn't closed it up overnight, she wondered. Maybe they are starting to get weaker.
Jay, follow me. I found this thing yesterday. You have to see. What? Just follow me. Jay came over to where Katie was widening the access she had made yesterday. Milo was doing his best to help. Jay reached up above their heads and started to pull on larger trunks. They came away easily. Katie looked at Jay and shrugged her shoulders as if to say, I don't get it either.
Jay and Katie soon made a path big enough for the two kids and a dog to get through easily. And soon they were at the clearing. Katie rushed over to her flower. It was still there. It was real. She showed it to Jay, who also wanted to take it to Mom. The same thought Katie had had, and they left the flower to grow as it wanted. Jay led the way onwards, pushing through the vines beyond the clearing. These were tougher and more like normal vines, but it was quick work for Jay to cut a way through. Either side of them, they noticed there were a few other clearings hidden from normal view behind matted vines. Without talking about it, they both decided to explore and find another one they could get through to. This was often the way with Jay and Katie. Jay didn't like to speak much, but somehow the two siblings understood each other without needing to talk out loud.
They were almost through to the closest clearing when Milo began to pull on his leash off to one side. Milo, stop, said his usually patient owner 2 or 3 times. But the little dog pulled and pulled until he got away and scrambled off through a thick web. Milo, come back now, yelled Jay, with absolutely zero result. Milo was on the trail of something, and nothing could turn him around. Luckily, his vines were harder for him to get through on his stumpy corgi legs than was for Katie's pocket knife to cut through behind him. She caught up pretty soon and saw what he had found. It was another clearing with a huge mound of vines, covering up something tall in the middle of it. It might be a shed, thought Katie, or a small house. The two of them got to work pushing in with their knives and twisting vines away with a stout stick.
Then, with a clang, Katie's knife hit into something metal. Jay and Katie looked at each other. This was major. It had to be a car. Katie tried to clear a narrow way as best she could, deep into the big mound, with Milo helping by biting smaller vines and dragging them out. Jay went around to the other side and began hauling down vines from the top of the heap. Katie was able to squeeze in under the thickest covering and get close to the hidden secret. It was a truck! A delivery truck! The vines had broken the windows and climbed in through the open doors of the cab. At least the driver got away, thought Kitty. She climbed into the cab, treading on vines and kicking them out of the way. Through the window, she shouted to Jay, "It's a truck! Look, I got in! Jay couldn't help shouting, woohoo! And reached through the window to trade high fives with Katie. Milo was less impressed. Katie had tied his leash to the outside of the truck, and he was getting tired of being stuck there. He looked up, turning his head between Katie and the crazy metal thing that he, the fierce and clever dog, found. But I'm bored with it, and his eyes said, can we forget this thing now and go to the beach? It didn't want to play chase. It was just a dumb old Amazon truck. I bet there's stuff we can burn in the back. If only we could get in, said Jay. Let's go for it. But there was no way they could get through with just the pocket knives they had brought, though they gave it a good try. There's way too much cabbage back here, said Jay. Cabbage was their nickname for vines. We'll never get the back doors open like this. They quickly decided to go home and get some tools and some good advice from Mom.
Mom was surprised to see them all back so soon with no wood and a still frisky dog. But they had a story to tell. Mom, Jay and I found an old van or something. You have to come back with us. It might have gas we could use for the generator. Mom quickly got as excited as the children. This was good news indeed. If they could rescue some fuel, they could have their Zoom call and a hot bath each and maybe bake a cake. Oh boy.
It turned out Mom needed to stay with Molly and Milo, but Jay was keen to go back with Katie. At Mom's suggestion, Jay grabbed a gas can from under the stairs, and the two set out to retrace their steps. It was impossible to get out the door without Milo, though. No way was he going to stay home with Mom and the terrifying baby. He was ready for adventure. It was still cold outside. The pale sun was as high as it was going to get behind the clouds, and would soon start dripping down again. In the cold weather, vines seemed to grow faster than ever, and already gray shoots were starting to close up the trail that Katie, Jay, and Milo had pioneered that morning. Still, it was easy enough to find their way back through the clearings to the truck. Katie kept thinking about computer time and cakes and hot water for baths and lights at night, and all the other things that they usually didn't have enough power for. Jay and Katie worked together to uncover the gas cap, which was not far behind the cab. It was hanging open, not a good sign. Maybe a traveler had found this truck ages ago and already collected any gas that was left. The two children pulled out a thick vine that had settled into the gas tank, and Jay threaded a long coil of plastic tube into its place. The tube came up dry. There was no gas to be had in there.
Oh no, said Katie. I was so hopeful. She felt on the edge of tears as she realized there would be no cakes and pretty lights this Christmas after all. Katie didn't want to cry in front of Jay. Instead, she banged on the truck's metal side. Stupid truck, she said. You tricked us. But she was more sad than angry. She didn't say anything as Jay began to get back up into the cab and poked around. These seats won't burn, they said. They've rotted out. That's no good. Jay let out a sigh and stood up to their full height, holding a pry bar over their shoulder. Katie was ready to give up and go home and hide in her bed until Christmas was over and gone. Never mind, said Jay after a minute. We've got the big saw. Let's hack through to the back door and see if we can find something for the guinea. Jay untied Milo and brought him to the back of the truck. Katie followed too. Good old Milo got the idea of pulling the weakened vines away by biting them and tugging. He was having a great time at last. In a few minutes, they discovered the outline of the back door. It was standing slightly open. Vines had gotten into the crack, but not too far. Katie chopped at them with her pocket knife and made a gap big enough for them to try levering the door open. They couldn't really see what was inside. Neither of them wanted to put an arm into the dark without knowing what was in there.
Milo had his own ideas about that. Nosing around at the base of the door opening, he had somehow gotten hold of a sheet of thick plastic and was trying to pull it out. Jay and Katie cottoned on and grabbed hold of the material too. As they pulled, they began to see what it was. A white plastic sack. as long as Katie was tall and with several loose things inside, much bigger than Milo. Mercifully, the vines had not been able to get through the plastic or break it, and soon it lay on the ground outside the truck with 3 admirers wondering what on earth it could be. Some little time later, they banged on the house door with their precious load behind them. Jay! Katie! Where have you been? Dinner is on a table and it's nearly time to talk with Dad. Jay, put that sack over your shoulder on the corner and take these batteries and boot up the satellite dish. Katie, you can turn the computer on and set it on the table. Quick now, we don't want to miss Dad. Molly was already in her high chair at the dinner table, doing her best not to spill her cup of orange juice. The older kids rushed around setting everything up. Jay put the last of the wood into the generator and switched in a new set of batteries to charge. Jay was up the ladder to the attic with an armful of battery packs to get the satellite receiver working while Katie set up the family's old laptop at the far end of the dinner table. It was nearly 4 o'clock and everybody was rushing to be ready. Katie sat down in her usual place next to Molly. Jay had the other whole side of the table to themselves. Mom's place was set at the head of the table, and the computer was set facing them all from the opposite end.
Mom had managed to make bread somehow, and the smell was so delicious. As usual, their main food was going to be a fish casserole with whatever gravy they could grow in a window box. Bread was a special treat. Just as Mom set the mouth-watering loaf of crusty bread in the center of the table, the computer screen began to come to life. Burp, burp, said the computer. A call was coming in. Katie and Jay both rushed to hit the connect button. Jay got there first. It was Dad. A flood of tears sprang from nowhere to Katie's eyes as she told Dad how much she loved him and missed him and wanted him to get back. Everyone was crying and talking at once, and poor Dad was overwhelmed with emotion too. Soon Mom quieted everyone down, and it was time to start Christmas dinner. Dad said a little grace that ended with the hope that everyone could be together again soon. Now it was time to eat. Fetching and carrying and cutting at vines had made Kate ravenous, and soon she finished her bowl of casserole and thick slabs of warm baked bread. Poor old Dad only had a bowl of berries for Christmas dinner. He joked with the rest of their family about their luxurious lifestyle. Katie had some news for Dad.
You won't believe what we found, she said. There's places where the vines stopped growing and they're all weak and kind of yellow, and you can just pull them away. Here too, said Dad. Do you think they are giving up? We have been studying exactly this. We think they used up all of something they need to grow. This could be the beginning of the end of the vines. Dad was a biologist and he knew about these things. After the miasma 2 years ago, when the vines were just beginning to spread, he had flown to a special research lab in the forest near Vancouver to study the new plant. He had been trapped there ever since. Dad, that's fantastic. Is it really going to end? Will we be able to go back to life and back to school and everything? Asked Jay. Well, now, don't get too excited, little Jaybird, Dad replied. We're not certain yet, but, fingers crossed. Katie hoped and hoped it was true. How good it would be to see her friends and go into town and do normal stuff again. Suddenly, she remembered something else. She was so excited she talked right over the top of what Mom was saying. Dad, we found something in the clearing, a delivery van. Did you get gas? Asked Dad. Mom turned to look at Katie too with a question in her face. In all the rush, they had no time to tell her about what they found.
No, there was no gas. We did get a big sack of stuff, and maybe some will burn. Maybe, I hope. Shall we have a look at it? Jay spoke up. I'll get it. While Jay went for the mysterious sack, Katie checked the power packs attached to the computer. There was only 10% left. They wouldn't have much time left talking to Dad. Katie dimmed the screen to the lowest setting to save power. Mom pushed the dishes aside as Jay heaved the sack up onto the tabletop. Jay was ready to cut into the plastic and see what lumps inside could be when Mom suddenly said, "Stop, let me look." She had seen a little clear pocket on the outside of the sack full of the paper inside. She tore open the pocket and read intently. "Kids, look at this. What do you see there?" The writing was faded, but Katie could easily make it out. To Patrick Mollenberg, 2200 Lighthouse Lane, Cliffside, California. That was dumb. "Dad, it's addressed to you, to us. You guys must have ordered it. Open up, open it, open it."
Everyone was talking at once again. Dad was leaning forward to see what was happening, and his face filled the whole screen. What could it be? Jay sliced the bag open, and out tumbled some wrapped packages. There was a small silence before everyone started talking at once again. It was little Molly who spoke first. "Presents," she said. "Presents."